Hello, everyone. I'm so sad that I could not be there with y'all today, especially with the discussion that I have planned with this amazing theory. As you can see, I will be talking about the cultural identity theory for my presentation. And spoiler alert, this is something that we all have, but we don't all have the same one, and we all have multiple cultural identities, which I'll get into in a second. Cultural identity theory, aka CIT, was written by Mary Jane Collier and her colleagues, of course, there's a trend going on there, to describe our communicative processes we use to construct and negotiate our cultural group identities and relationships across contexts. The book states that cultural identities are shaped by definitions of self, avowals, and definition of others, ascriptions, as they play out in a political and historical larger context. Our identities are more than just our race, ethnicity, gender, sexuality, or anything like that. It's the way that we identify ourselves within our own cultural groups and those different prominence across contexts. For example, the fact that I'm from Virginia wouldn't matter in a group of a bunch of other Virginians. What would probably matter more is that I'm a female, because we're all Virginians, whatever. There's something else that makes me stand out. But say I work for the Red Cross and we're doing disaster relief in Virginia after a hurricane, and I'm the only person on the team from Virginia, then my cultural identity matters a lot more in a scenario like that. Okay, and it would become increasingly more important. I'd like to circle back, though, about these two words, avowals and ascriptions. The avowals are not the run-of-the-mill A-E-I-O-U vowels. Rather, they are responses to ongoing ascriptions about presentations of cultural groups that are often stereotypical. And the terms avowals and ascriptions interact. They are present as we constantly negotiate how we view our own culture and how it is viewed by others. There are four important principles in cultural identification. The first is the extent to which differing levels of agency exist. Agency is our freedom to present different identities and tactics that support our cultural identity. Important to note is that dominant group members will have more freedom with agency, while minority or co-cultural group members will have more risk associated with changes in their identities within the group. The second principle about our cultural identities and their intersection, it is their intersection with historical and social context. So, for example, the removal of American Indians from their land to reservations impacts cultural identities for generations. And social movements like the Me Too movement also continue to shape cultural identities and interactions between people among groups. The third is the extent to which privileges and subjugating ascriptions are operating within a context. Privileges are accompanied by dominant cultural positions where certain identities get ascribed in ways that reinforce the dominant structure. Subjugated ascriptions are the results of privilege in a society and how it operates. These can be unearned traits that you were born with because you were born into the dominant group. Finally, the fourth principle is the importance of reflexive dialogue, sort of like dialogic listening, which you'll understand. It's the type of communication that seeks to understand, listen, and learn about others so we can uncover biases, assumptions, and privileges. While understanding the political, historical, and social context, we can work together to overcome subjugated descriptions and provide greater agency and freedom for enacting our cultural identities. Researchers Jonathan Matuszewski, I can't say his last name, and Demi Simi, which is a wonderful name, look at cultural identities in real life so we can move in that direction. These researchers use cultural identity theory to explore how Latina college athletes can get leadership roles in college athletics because they're underrepresented in leadership roles. They share key challenges this group faces and identify reasons that explain why attaining leadership roles are so difficult. To name a few, they noted unfamiliarity with college culture, socioeconomic status, their value to put their families first, and the need to resist ascribed gender and race identities. By using this theory, they found that embracing their cultural identities is key to helping Latinas move into leadership positions. Their identities provide a source of pride and comfort to address the challenges they can experience in their leadership journeys, and that they can offer unique perspectives that will enhance the experience of all athletes on the team. This research encourages everyone to embrace their identities and their experiences, because when we share them and use reflexive dialogue, we listen, we understand other perspectives, and uncover biases and assumptions about each other. What better way to explore this theory and in research than doing something about health? What? Oh, I'm so predictable. Researchers Moyse et al. Published a study in 2018 titled The Use of Cultural Identity in Predicting Health Lifestyle Behaviors in Latinx Immigrant Adolescents. Before I continue, I do want to mention that Latinx is no longer an appropriate term, and this theory can actually be used to explain that, because the former Latinx term has historical origins of colonization and basically makes a sweeping generalization about a stereotype of a culture. This is a rabbit trail, of course, for another time, but it's similar to the debate over African American or even Hispanic. All of these terms have political and historical origins, which is another example of this theory in real life, but I'll get to the research. That's just very interesting to note. Moyse and their colleagues used cultural identity theory to see how it predisposes healthy lifestyle choices relating to physical activity, diet, and sleep habits among Latino adolescents in Miami and Los Angeles. They used path analysis to estimate the associations between 302 participants' cultural identities and health lifestyle behaviors. Sorry, that was my dryer. To see if their cultural identity could predict health behavior choices. Just as our book highlights, the researchers also show us that in the study with study participants, they have agency in multiple cultural groups. The researchers shared, as a result of having to navigate multiple cultural reference points, immigrant youth are faced with the challenge of developing a cultural identity that includes both heritage and immigrant cultural components. The study ultimately concluded that while past research has focused primarily on pathology and health risk, their study found that the participants with higher identity affirmation had healthier lifestyle choices as they predicted. And what matters more about this study is that they were able to predict these health behaviors, but more even that the participants who were proud of their identities and were more affiliated with their cultural identities actually had better health outcomes, which that is just cool to see. But likewise, the example our book gave us found that when Latinas embraced their cultural identities, that it was key to helping and then move into more leadership roles. So all of that, both of those studies and everything that our book said, and even those other examples I gave, all of them come together. And I just think that's so cool. Okay, I think it's that time again. Let's recap. This theory views cultural identities as something that is shaped by definitions we use to describe our own cultural identities and the identities of others as they play out in social, political, and historical contexts. Now, here are some questions. These are more based on your experience than they are like getting you to dig in, I guess. But I hope you dig into these. Is your cultural identity more important to you now? Have you felt closer to your cultural identity as a child, or have you come to appreciate it over time as an adult? Or has this theory given you a new understanding of the layers of your own cultural identity? How so? I really wish I could be here for this conversation, and I will be watching it when I write my summary. So make me proud, have good conversation. For 1 second, I'll flip back to, here's the definition if you need to see that again. Here are the principles if you need to see that again. And Dr. Shores can just pause the video on these places. But one last time, here are the questions. I miss you all. I hope you had a wonderful class. Have a wonderful night. Bye, guys.